Hey there! Welcome back to this week's episode of the Paramotor Podcast, where we got Mitch G and Giles Fowler facing off head-to-head to talk about different wings. Get on out of here, boy. Let's get into this.
I finally get to speak to the famous Mitch.
That's right. Mitch, Giles, Mitch.
Hello. Nice to meet you.
And you, Mitch. I've just watched one of your videos tonight.
I saw your comment.
It's a good job you got work supply boots, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. That's what I do with my retired work boots. I just foot drag them until there's holes in the bottom.
Nice.
And then take them back to stores and go, what happened to these?
Sell these for $20, but they have holes in the bottom.
Yeah.
I really want to find my next wing, and I've been chatting with Mitchell so much, but I love the way that you explained it. So maybe you can start, Giles, by talking about this free ride, why you went to the free ride, and then Mitch can
counter it.
Yeah, counter it.
Free ride for me was a bit of a gamble. I hadn't actually tried it before I flew it, but I've flown other ozone wings before, and the phraseology I use is, if you can make a hadron launch like an ozone, pretty much everyone would fly it, because ozone make very, very nice launching wings. The downside to ozone, some ozone designs, is they oscillate quite badly, and it's a divergent oscillation, which means you've actually got to fly the thing all the time. There are some of their wings, like the Speedster, the Sirocco 2, which are fairly stable. What you gain in stability, you lose in dynamic roll. And that's where Dudek have got the very good balance. And I found this with the Warp, the Hadron. I haven't flown Snake, so you've got the Snake expert in the room in Mitch.
The snake is it's actually a little bit even more roll stable than a Hadron and a Warp.
Is it? Okay.
And it's not it's not as sensitive on the brakes.
Right, so it's quite heavy.
It's more like a highly loaded Nucleon XX or Sirocco 2, something like that. It's like a heavy loaded, almost intermediate wing as far as how it feels in stability.
So I've always been scared of the Snake because of what its sort of rep was. It was fast, it was agile, it was almost Dudek's slalom wing. It was their Viper equivalent, and that's what put me off. So I've never even considered it, which is quite mad considering I've gone for a free ride, which is it's got massive amounts of roll, and if you want it to go over, it'll do it. You've got enough energy, and it dives so much in the turns. It's like sucks you at the ground, gain all that speed, pull a brake over the top. Whereas the Hadron and the Warp, I never really found. I had to work it a bit harder to get the energy in the wing to do anything dynamic with it.
As opposed to the free ride.
Yeah, the free ride is just dive at the ground, speed, pull, go, and it'll just do whatever you want. But if you want to go in a straight line, unless it's a stable day, it's going to be hard work. If it's a thermic day, you're just going to be constantly on the brakes trying to keep it. You can't relax and look down at your GPS or work out what's going on.
Right.
Because within about 20, 30 seconds, you've got to reach up and stop it doing whatever it's doing. Whereas the Hadron is purely the best cross-country wing I've ever flown.
With the Hadron, you still get the very, very good roll rate. Maybe not as fast and unstable as a free ride, but the Hadron still, the roll rate is, if you pull those brakes, it'll roll over great, but you gain so much stability.
I completely agree with that. I actually did my first ever barrel roll on the Hadron. But it takes at least...
Hey, me too.
It takes at least two decent-sized wing overs to get enough energy to where I would say feel comfortable going over the top.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe it's just the way I've got it set up. And I'm flying a larger one because it's the one I used for the coast-to-coast, so I needed more lifting capacity.
Yeah.
If I was probably on a 20 or maybe even an 18... Because you fly quite small wings anyway, don't you?
I do. I flew an 18 Hadron XX and a 16 Snake XX and a 16 Warp.
So my 22 is going to be like the tank comparison.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I wanted to comment on that in my opinion, how the wing loading, how small of a wing you fly, plays a much more bigger role in how it handles than the design of the wing itself. So if you were to fly like a 20-meter Nucleon XX, that the roll rate's going to be even more crazy on that than if you were to fly like a 21-meter free ride.
Yes,
just because of the size difference.
The wing loading.
Yeah, the wing loading.
So I wanted to toy with the idea of going to maybe a 19 free ride to see how that compared in the sort of cross-country stakes, because I just love the way the ease. Almost, you don't really have to think about a launch on a free ride. You just sort of step forward and the thing pops up and jab the brakes and away you go. The Dudek wings, I've always found you've got to have a really good A game on the A's, push it up.
What I've found helps with the dudek wings is just let the trims out a little bit. Do you launch your Hadron with the trims all the way in or out?
Yeah, all the way in.
Slightly?
Flaps out all the way in, because it still rockets up anyway.
Yeah, it does on the Hadron.
Yeah.
The Snake and the Warp, I feel like they do need to let the trims out to about 3 to get an easier launch with the Snake and the Warp.
I wish I'd had more time to play with the Warp. It literally was in the hours of daylight on the day that we were testing the comparisons.
Yeah.
But the chap I was flying with, Rab, we're both cross country pilots, and we wanted to see if it had that bit of its in its repertoire, if actual economy, because the blurb was saying it's going to be as more economic than the Hadron, and I was like, well, we need to prove this. If he's got a 20 and I've got a 20, let's see who's using more RPM. And I was using more power to stay level than he was.
Yeah, we're trimmed out.
Yeah, with the trim out.
So the Warp has more reflex than the Hadron does if you're trimmed all the way out. So that would explain, the higher RPM. But I think if you were both trims in all the way, that the Warp would be more efficient.
Yeah, but it wasn't as fast.
True. It's not going to be as fast.
It's got the Hadron's trim range with the bottom end where it's trimmed in is with the flaps of the Hadron.
Yes. Yep.
And then the top end is the Hadron Lycon, but with a bit of bar.
Yep. That's how the Snake is as well.
I think I've just got a soft spot for the Hadron. It just does what it does very, very well. The tip steering's there. You just trimmers out or even trimmers in, just point yourself in the direction and go. But then you've still got that ability to play if you want it.
Oh yeah, it's in my opinion, the Hadron is the best all-around wing. If you're gonna have one wing to do everything with, the Hadron XX is the wing to have. And the Warp and the Snake and the Freerider or Slalom, if you just want to go out on a dead calm day and rip around some poles or foot drag and play around, then the Freeride, the Warp, and the Snake are better for that purpose.
Anthony, I don't think you're going to get a lot of difference here. We're both agreeing at the minute.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's good. For me, ultimately, it's like an understanding. And what you specifically said was during that 300-mile cross-country trip of yours, when you were passing over the mountains, you said that in spite of the turbulence, the wing was doing its job at staying inflated, and even though you were getting rocked around, and you ultimately had the confidence to stay in the air. I fly here in the deserts of El Paso, and it's thermic and bumpy, and Mitch can attest to this. And
I flew yesterday, and there were still thermals up until like 30 minutes prior to sunset. The air was still bumpy.
If you were flying that 300-mile trek over the mountains and you were on the free ride, the one that you currently have, the 17-meter, assuming that I would get either the 17, the next step up is a 19, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Is it more likely that wing may have folded up in something, at least not responded as well as the Hadron XX?
I don't think I could comment to say what wing will or won't collapse, because any wing will collapse. If you give it the right conditions, it's going to go. The beauty of paramotor wings over paraglider wings, and I'm going to sort of sidetrack this slightly, is that, as Mitch has already said, we're naturally more highly loaded.
Uh-huh.
The internal pressures are quite high. We have built-in reflex, which is a great stabilizer. It's a pitch stabilizer. The paraglider guys generally want that rockiness to be able to get them in and out of the thermal. It's providing them the feedback for when they do active pilotage. We're quite lazy as paramotor pilots. We just want to get the wing up and point in that direction and go. And Mitch is going in his sort of Dagobah run down the valley, low level. It's just, you don't want to have that wing pitching forward and then throwing you down into the ground. You just want it to stay where it is. I want to drop now on the bar as your videos. I loved your underseat video tonight. It was great.
Thank you.
And it just gives you that ability to use that as pitch control and not have it rocking backwards and forwards.
Right.
Either sucking the energy out of your wing or possibly pitching forward and then having a frontal collapse, front tuck.
So one of the analogy I was talking to Anthony about earlier, Giles, is do you ride motorcycles?
I do.
Okay, so you understand like oversteer and understeer?
Yeah.
As far as handling in a corner?
Yeah.
So a motorcycle with oversteer means when you initiate the turn, the motorcycle will continue to fall even steeper into a turn. It wants to to fall into the turn more. And understeer would be you have to continually add pressure on the handlebars to maintain that turn.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I explain the difference between like the free ride and other wings. Is the free ride has what I would call oversteer, and it wants to continue to fall into the turns.
You kind of hold the pressure to stop it going any further.
Exactly. You have to add counter pressure to stop it. Whereas the Hadron, it's neutral, maybe a little bit of an understeer.
Yeah, you've got to make it do it. And
Yeah.
I suppose that's what took me back. I suppose for me, I'd flown the oversteer version first when I flew the free ride just before I flew the warp. Got on the warp, it's like, hang on a minute, this is really benign. Come on, get in the turns. Come on. Where's this scary beast that you've got to have 300 hours to fly? This thing's quite tame, really. Give me a free ride back again. I suppose it's like when you get used to that sort of motorbike, the bike that is twitchy in the corners.
Yep.
When you go back to a kind of cruiser, flipping out, this is boring. I suppose that's the analogy, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Wing loading, once again, wing loading plays a huge factor, though, because I fly a 16-meter warp, and that thing rolls faster than I want it to sometimes, So
Yeah, we would fly big wings. I'm very conservative in the way I fly, and I say that loosely, but compared to you, I fly much, much bigger wings, so I've not really got the G-loading side of it, other than the 17 free ride. But I'm still 15, 20 kilos under the top end of that wing, apparently.
If you ever get the chance, fly the same wing in different sizes. Hop on like a 16-meter warp, and then hop on even an 18 or 20-meter warp, and you'll see a huge difference. And Tom Kubat can attest to this because he flew a 20-meter Hadron XX for a long time, and then I sold him my 18-meter Hadron XX, and he was
where
like,
it went?
"Yeah,
You sold it to Tom?
yeah, of course."
Oh,
He was like, "This is a totally different wing. It's not even comparable. It's so much more roll crazy, and it changes the dynamic. Even 2 meters will change."
I found that when I flew.
flies.
Yeah, I flew the 3 different Viper 3s. I flown the 26, which I used on the altitude because we just wanted pure lift, efficiency and lift. So that was the sort of upper end of it. That was the biggest one they made.
Yeah.
I then actually owned a 24 as well, and then I was asked to test fly the 20. But as you said, there's 3. They're all called Viper 3, but they're all 3 different wings.
For sure.
The 20, I think, was one above the smallest they made anyway. But as you said, it just you pull the steering, round, it's gone. But it wouldn't stay in a straight line. It was horrible. It really was horrible.
So what would be the difference, of course, because isn't the free ride kind of modeled after the Viper?
It's supposed to be a tamed down Viper, but I don't think you could call it that because it still goes around like it just sucks you around a corner. You pull it over, pull the internal brake, and just round you go.
Right.
I think it comes down to personal preference, really. Would you prefer an easier launch, or would you prefer a little bit more stability in the bumps? And then once you decide that, then you choose what your experience level dictates what size you want to fly. Because your weight might fit into the 17 meter, the 19 meter, or the 20 meter free ride, and then you choose which size you want based on your flying style, how conservative you are. Do you want, fast takeoff and landings, but a crazy roll rate, or do you want, nice floaty lift, but slow?
Right. And do you think I once again try or attempt to go back to the original question as far as if you were going through really turbulent air on the free ride, is it more likely to collapse sooner, or do you just have to active pilot it more intensely than you would on something like the Hadron, where experience then would be, your saving grace?
The free ride, from my perspective, is more. It provides more feedback to the pilot.
Okay.
You'll feel more through the brakes. You'll feel more through the harness. Whereas the Hadron, and I was thinking about this while you were talking, it's more like a Cadillac. In that you'll go through the lumps and the bumps. You'll know that they're there, but it's just like I'm through it.
Yeah.
Right.
And you haven't really got to do too much. You just let the wing soak it up. Whereas because the free ride is a dynamic wing and it's got this divergent oscillation trend, that you've got to stop it going. It's going to be off. So you're constantly trying to keep it on track. It's not got that Cadillac tendency of just point me in the right direction and I'll just soak up the potholes. And if you want, and this is why I've got both wings. I want the Cadillac, and I want the bike that takes me around the corner really quick. I can't have both. You will never get that perfect combination, because the moment you start blending them, and correct me wrong, from you've got vastly more hours on the warp than I have. That's where you've got to warp.
Yeah, the warp it has traits from both. You get a little bit more stable steering and stability and turbulence like the Hadron, but it does the turning radius is a lot tighter on the warp compared to the Hadron. It's more like the free ride, but it still is a little bit tougher to launch than a free ride. The wing pops up over your head quick, but you have to run just a little bit faster with the warp compared to the free ride. And I think it's just they have a little bit more stability built in, and less of the airfoil creating lift and more of it creating stability compared to a free ride.
I found that when I tried out your warp, that it popped up, at least in the moment, it felt like it popped up faster. And if you weren't on it almost instantaneously, it wanted to fall back, as it did the first two attempts.
I'll be out. You were pulling too much brake, but that's you. I think you were
nervous.
Yeah, you were nervous. You were trying to get that pressure, and I'm sure you had to. Well, I have to run really fast to get the 16 meter off the ground. So you were trying to get the lift in the brakes, but you were just pulling too much brakes too early. You didn't have the airspeed yet.
And I'm wondering, in comparison, if I was on the free ride, does it respond in the same way? Being that, Giles, one of your favorite attributes of the free ride is its easiness to launch. And you demoed the 19-meter free ride, Mitchell.
Yeah, so I have about a week of flight time on the 19-meter free ride.
I understand it takes less because of the lightweight material. However, would I find it easier to launch the free ride as opposed to the warp? Would it stay up longer due to the lightweight nature of it?
They're pretty close, but if you would have done what you did on the warp on the free ride, you would have had the same results. You were just pulling too much brake too early.
Okay.
You have to get some airspeed before you pull brake, but the difference will be they'll both pop up very quick at the initial part of the launch.
Right.
But then the difference would be maybe the warp you have to take an additional 2 or 3 steps before you're flying, whereas a free ride, once you have that airspeed and you pull some brakes, it just sucks you right off the ground like that.
Had you just flown the Spider before you'd flown the other wings, Anthony? I mean, on the same day. I meant, but before you flew the warp, had you just prior to that flown another wing, or had you literally just gone straight out to fly the warp?
No, Mitchell, what is it that Lee Boone flies again?
GTX 22 or 24.
Oh, the Paramania.
Paramania.
Right. So I flew that. I just tried that just one afternoon, flew around on it for maybe 30 minutes, thought it was cool. Aside from the Spider, during training, of course, I used the Ozone Mojo, which I feel was relatively similar in launch characteristics. It's like you're really pulling this big boat up into the air, and if you stop for a second, you still have like a minute, not literally a minute, but you have time to adjust and think about what you're doing. After flying the GTX? Yeah. I flew Mitchell's 16-meter Snake, and I think I had one failed attempt. Is that right? Yeah, one failed attempt before getting it right.
Yeah, same situation, too much brakes, and you stalled it before you got airspeed.
Right. And to me, the confusion was in the sense, I think, in the line length and the amount of mass that you're actually pulling up into the air. When you have that 16-meter wing, it's so much smaller. The lines are significantly shorter, and which results in it popping up way faster than you've been previously used to.
Yeah.
And on the warp, I just think going back to the Spider and having done that time and time again, you follow that what you're used to, and it popped up so quick.
I think it's one of those things. We drive stick in the UK with a clutch. The brakes are like a clutch feel, and each wing has got a different feel of how that clutch works.
Yeah.
So the GTX is it's got quite a long brake travel. The Spider has got quite a long brake travel. The moment you move to something like a Hadron or a Warp, you're into wings that are naturally more responsive to any brake input anyway. So where you would go to shoulders to sort of stop it, you're going to your ears. So where you would instinctively go to your natural brake position for those other wings, you've already
Right.
done too much, and so
Right.
it's not gonna commit. And a thing I sort of found with the Hadron, you've got to get it beyond what I call 11 o'clock. And then once it's over your head, you've got to stop it and then run like hell, because otherwise it just wants to go. And
So the
you've
timing
got to
is a
catch
lot
up
more
with it.
important.
Yeah, it's timing and that finesse of how much brake you've got to pull to stop the wing overshooting. On a windy day, you've got to pull loads of brake. The thing just wants to keep going over your head. Loads of brake. Stop going overhead.
Free ride is similar as well.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Yeah, you're sort of holding the thing, this stallion, back from wanting to go. The moment you turn, your brakes are below your shoulder line almost, and then as you gain that speed, then the hands come up, and then you're accelerating away. But it's just that finesse, and say that's why I want to know what wings you've just flown beforehand,
Right.
immediately beforehand, because then that, as Mitch has said, you had too much brake because you were flying a wing that needed more brake in a different position
Right.
to where you were instinctively trying to do it on the warp.
Yeah.
And you know how you get better at that? You have to kite. You have to kite the wings.
That's what I was going to say.
It'll become second nature, muscle memory, to know where that position is that you need to pull to stop the wing. Not too much, but not too little. Just
Without
perfect.
getting the lines caught in the propeller.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's what I think I would do definitely in the future is not attempt to fly, just clip into my motor and then fly the warp next time. I imagine in the future flying a new wing, I would clip into my kiting harness. And get the feel for that timing, and then adding the power when I would do it, walking through the steps.
I've still got a ground handling harness for that. It's actually an old paragliding harness I did my SIV on, and I keep it specifically just for that reason. A new wing, right? What's it going to do? Okay, I'm happy with that. That's how it feels. Will it cobra nicely? Will it reverse? Will it forward? Fine, cool. Now get in the motor, and my brain has already tuned into that feel, as Mitch has already said.
Right.
You're not getting much of an argument between us at the moment.
I'm gonna have to retitle it from Giles versus Mitch.
Yeah, it's just personal preference. I think for the conditions and weather that I fly in, I prefer a little bit more stability, and I'll sacrifice having to run slightly faster or take an extra few steps on my launch to have that stability in the air.
You think that if the conditions were right, if it was a perfectly calm day and thermals were not present, I mean, you think you would have some fun on the free ride? No?
Oh yeah, for sure. There are a few other subtle differences. One thing I use speed bar a lot. I don't know if you know that about me, but
oh yeah,
do you?
He's always on it.
He's all about the bar. Hold my beer, I'm on the bar.
The free ride speed bar travel is longer than the Warp or Hadron XX, and I'm a short guy. I'm only 5'6", so
Same here.
My legs weren't long enough to use the full speed bar travel on the free ride, and so that would drive me crazy if I owned that wing, and then I'm trying to stretch my toes to get the full travel out of the speed bar. I don't know. So it's just personal preferences. And
I noticed that first time I put the trimmers out on the free ride, and you look at it and it just goes pop. Oh, is that it?
That's
How
it.
are you going to give me? Yeah.
Right. Versus the Hadron, you drop those trims, that thing takes off like a rocket.
And that's a product design thing, because Nivic are the same. They've I've flown the Cougar, tried a Cougar 2, and again, short trims, long bar design. The Nivics are very good wings, but they put all their speed on the bar end.
Yeah.
And Ozone are exactly the same. All the speed of that wing is on the bar. But for short people like us, I do that. That's probably why I like the Hadron for the cross country. But I don't want to be sat on bar or cross country. Just buying the trimmers out. Let's go for it, man. Let's just get over there. And I want to get there in comfort, not have my legs doing the old funky disco dance of juddering, which is horrendous.
Yeah.
Would you say that the free ride may be for a more experienced pilot then, as opposed to the Snake in Hadron? As far as in the air, of course, ground launching, there's more challenges with the Hadron, but in the air, you have to stay on top of it more.
Yeah, you have to stay on the free ride more because it dives a lot. I don't know what the 19 was like when you flew it, Mitch, but I love the fact of I need to get down there, and all I'm going to do is a shallow turn to the right and a shallow turn to the left, and I'm just diving at the ground. I don't have to spiral to get down. It just I'm down there. And then you carry that speed, and it doesn't really balloon much unless you want it to. But the Hadron just doesn't do it in the same way. It will dive, But with all that extra energy, you can get in a real pickle really quickly if you don't manage that energy out.
Yeah.
So that's why I've got both wings. I've got the play wing and I've got the cross country wing, and never the two shall meet. So.
Yeah. So back to your the turbulence in the mountains with the free ride and the Hadron. I think the Hadron would stay open longer. I think the free ride would take a collapse before the Hadron. And that's just based on my week of flight time on the free ride. But I did kite it a lot in pretty strong conditions in the rotor of houses and stuff. And my experience is that the free ride will collapse first. Does that make it more dangerous? I don't know, because it will probably recover better than the Hadron as well. The Hadron has the C wires. It has wires in the leading edge and in the trailing edge. So if it were to take a collapse, it's probably going to be very large.
Right.
Other than little tip collapses, those are fine. But if it were to take a 50% collapse, it's probably going to end up being larger than it would be on a free ride because of those wires. They create just a huge surface area for the air to grab and continue that collapse around.
I think we might have our first discussion here. I've had a double collapse on landing, and it recovered very, very quickly. So,
oh yeah, sure, I saw that.
Mitch actually sent me that video. He was the one that showed me the video of that landing after the 300 miles, where you're on the Hadron and it's like folding in like crazy.
I wonder what the free ride would have done in the same situation, though. I don't know.
I wasn't landing. I was landing full trim. I was fully out.
Wow,
that's how windy that day was.
That's insane.
Yeah, I did the circuit pattern overhead, and I pulled the trimmers in, still with the flaps out, and then I looked down at my GPS, and it went 2, 0, 3, 9, 11, 18. But no, I'm going backwards at 18 k's an hour. No. Right, I've got to get down out of this wind gradient, and I've got to go forward again. Right, sod it. Trimmers out, get back down, get through the wind gradient, and I just left the trimmers out all the way in. That's the only way I made it back through that wind, was at full trim. So it gives you some perception of how strong that wind is, because I wasn't coming in very quickly, and I'm at full trim on that landing, which is also why you've got a lot less angle of attack, because you're on bar at that point.
Do you think ultimately you would have been any worse off on the free ride?
I would have been really tired, I think.
You'd have been very busy. Very busy compared to Hadron.
Your hands would be twitching around just trying to keep the pressure in the wing. And this is almost what the paraglider guys do as normal jogging when they're flying. When they say in the manuals, when it says active pilotage, most paramotor pilots don't know what active pilotage is, unless you're like Carlo Glee, who is a paraglider pilot, who will fly the wing. His hands will be dancing around. The wing won't move, but the only reason it's not moving is his hands are keeping that wing above his head. Right. We just like to go, trimmers out a bit, and I'm going to go. And the reflex and the stability of the wing will keep it there. We're quite lazy as paramotors.
The free ride likes to shoot forward, and in strong bumps, it will shoot forward faster than your hands can move down. And for me, it was very uncomfortable. Which
is again why I said I've got the two wings. I like my Hadron for the cross country and the free ride to play with. I don't do long flights on the free ride.
And I fly, every time I go out, I fill my tank up almost all the way, if not all the way. And I fly for an hour and a half to 2 hours every time. And, 2 hours prior to sunset here in West Texas, the air is still, there's still strong enough thermals that you can climb in with your motor at idle 2 hours prior to sunset. So for me, the free ride, I would only want to fly that on very, very rare days when it's overcast and there's no thermals. And so it's like it's just personal preference. I'd prefer a wing that I'm a little bit more comfortable on, and a little bit more stability, and I'll sacrifice the tougher launch for that.
I think I'd agree with you. If you've got to fly where you are flying, I would completely agree with you. The free ride probably would hardly come out in those conditions. But I say for where I fly in the UK and the conditions we have here. I'm quite happy with just the flavour of two. If I had to pick one or the other, that'd be a really, really hard decision to make. I don't know. I really, it would be. If you had to leave the house in 30 seconds because it's burning down and your paramotor's already on the driveway, and you had to pick one
which wing do you grab?
Which wing? It is that kind of push to test. I don't know. I'd be screaming for both. I've got to take both.
Giles, did you ever fly the Sirocco?
Sirocco, yes, Sirocco 2. I had that. That was the wing I bought when I was trying to get my confidence back when I came back from the Falklands.
Right. Right.
So yeah, I flew it for about 3 hours. Loved it, but then I thought I need more stability. I want more dynamic roll. So I sold it and then bought a free ride.
Stable?
Yeah, but then I had a 24. So it goes back to Mitch's point of
Right.
if you want the dynamic roll, go for a smaller wing. I've got friends that have got 19 for Sirocco 2s, and they love it. Still got the efficiency, still got the speed. It's actually got quite a large trimmer range on the. It's effectively the lightweight Speedster 2 of the ozone range. It's got the largest trimmer range going.
Have you flown a Spider?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Okay, so can you compare the Sirocco to the Spider for me? Maybe I just need a little redirecting.
It's a slow ass Sirocco. It
But what
launches
about the
same.
roll?
It's easy to launch. It's as easy to launch as the Freeride is. They've got to the point where on those wings, I demoed it to someone and he got really annoyed with me. I said I literally put my hand in between the where you clip in on the carabiner and behind the speed bar lines, between the webbing, and literally said I'm not going to pull the A's. It was a 2-3 mile an hour wind, and I just pulled it up and it went straight up. Didn't have to do anything, and literally just walked left and right. Wasn't touching the brakes or the lines, and just stayed above my head.
Nice.
That's how easy it is to launch, and you can do that with the Spider. You don't even need the A's to launch a Spider.
Right.
You need the A's to launch a Hadron on a Warp, or probably a Snake as well.
The Sirocco comes in, I guess if I was to get one, is it the 18 or 19 meter? Do you know?
Let me look it up. I got the stuff right here.
There's a 19's the smallest they make.
It's a 19.
Here I am. I'm looking at the Snake, Freeride, Warp, Hadron, and all of these wings are recommended for 300 plus hours. I'm probably shy of that, just a little. And
How much shy?
oh god,
Sorry, awkward question. Awkward.
moment.
I recommended the Nucleon XX to Anthony because
Which would be the equivalent to the Sirocco's from Duda.
Sirocco.
Yeah.
So what you're going to get with Sirocco is easier launch, like Giles mentioned.
Right.
What you would gain with the Nucleon is you might even have even more trim range, more speed in the Nucleon XX, but your roll rate would be much faster on the Nucleon XX than the Sirocco if you were to fly the same size.
Really?
Completely agree. Yeah, completely agree.
So what do you want?
And it comes in less.
Again, there is no battle here tonight. It's just knowledge and experience of flying.
Experience,
wings,
and it's really hard to know these things from just reading the specifications on the website. You really have to fly them yourself,
Right.
or watch a lot of videos and watch people very closely. Like, okay, how much do they weigh? What size are they flying? How much brake travel did it take to get this amount of turn? And I've done that a lot because I enjoy this topic so much. So I really pay attention to those fine details, and I can tell, how a wing handles and reacts. If you watch Woody's video flying his Sirocco, how much long brake travel he'll pull to get these huge wing overs going, and then
He
watch.
always takes a wrap, doesn't he? He always takes a wrap.
Yeah, and then watch a guy like, I think his name's Brian. I don't know for sure. He flies like a 20 meter Nucleon XX, and he's pulling, maybe a little bit more than I would pull on a Hadron, and he's doing barrel rolls.
Right. And your flying buddy, your military flying buddy, Mark Honeycutt.
Yeah.
Right? He flies the
Sirocco, and he also has a long brake travel to get these big wing overs going. So just fine details. Do you want an easier launch? You can still do anything with either wing if you have the experience, but which do you prefer?
Would that translate to safety then? I mean, because if there's longer brake pull, I imagine people can get themselves into a sticky situation for the average paramotor pilot who may not have the experience in over-controlling, maybe pulling more than they should, and then finding themselves in a situation where they're diving towards the ground because they just put it in too steep of a bank.
I think it's the opposite. Because they've got a long brake travel, that stops them getting in the sticky position. If you overreact with like the twitchy bike, you're going to get into that tank slapper. Whereas actually, if it's really sedate, you can't really get it into that stage unless you're taking a wrap. And that's why, if you see it in Woody's videos, he's taking a wrap to get that shorter brake travel because he wants that response straight away. So if you do want that quick input, take a wrap. If you want it just to be benign, don't take it.
Yeah, I guess just for the flying style. If you were doing cross country, then don't take the wrap. If you're trying to play around and have some fun, take the wrap and go at it.
But of the two, as Mitch has said, the Nucleon XX is a really, really good wing It's that one just below the hadron. It's got all the toys. It's got the tip steering. It's got the 2D steering.
It has power attack, which is huge for me.
Which, once again, can you say what that is again?
So power attack means that you set the trims out. Basically, you release the trims all the way, but the wing is still in the slow trims position as if they were all the way in. And then when you push the speed bar, it pulls the speed bar line, and it also releases the trim at the same time. So it's like you have both
the full range.
You have the full range from slow speed to full speed, all in the speed bar, but with the short travel, but still with the short speed bar travel.
Enticing. Where if you were on the Sirocco, it doesn't matter where the setting is, right? I think on the manual, if I'm not mistaken, you can have it at any trim setting and still use full speed bar.
Correct, which you can't do on the Nucleon, unless you're doing power attack on the Nucleon.
Huh.
So on the Sirocco, as you said, Ozone just changed the angle of attack. The reflex is fixed, whereas on the Nucleon XX, as you let the trimmer out, that's the reflex going. Then as the bar comes on, all it's doing is twisting the wing down, lowering the leading edge, which gives you that pitch control and speed.
Nice. So somebody stepping up from a Dudek Universal or a Spider, their next wing on average that should be considered for something a little more spicy, something to have more fun with because they've reached, let's say, their max potential on their beginner wing. The Spider Mitchell calls a beginner wing. is they should probably first start looking at something like the Nucleon or the Sirocco, or I know we're not mentioning other manufacturers like Jin.
The Jin Mirage is a good wing.
Mirage?
A good intermediate. Yeah, Jin Mirage. It was one of the genuine reflex wings. I put about 30-40 hours on one of those things in the heat of the day, full speed bar, and it was wonderful to fly. And it sort of 100k cross country is quite easy on a mini plane.
Right.
But I quickly outflew it and then went to a Nucleon WRC. But it's one of the as intermediate wings go, the Sirocco, the Speedster 2, the Nucleon XX are all in that same bracket. I think I was calling it Dr. Pepper Coca-Cola. It's what flavor you like.
Right, right. And I guess finally on the Sirocco and Nucleon, is one of them more efficient than the other?
I can't comment because I've not redone any fuel trials on it. It was only the Hadron that I've done extensive fuel trials on.
Right.
So I can't really comment on that.
It would be so close that how you fly the wing is going to dictate, your fuel burn more so than the design of the wing.
Huh. Interesting. Well, look into that.
But I burn like 6 liters an hour on my warp.
Right.
I don't have to get that burn rate if I flew it like a. I don't want to offend anyone if I flew it like a granny.
Oh, Giles versus Mitch. Go.
Well, I flew like a granny on the Hadron the other day and burnt 3.8 liters an hour.
Oh yeah, I burned like 6 liters an hour on the warp. So.
Right.
Yeah. But again, it's when people say, "What wing do you buy when you first learn?" I say, don't bother buying one until you finished your training because you won't know what you want to do.
True.
Right.
You won't know whether you want to do playing down low or I'd say playing down. You shouldn't be doing that when you're new in anyway. But do you know what I mean? It's horses for courses, and going right back. This is why I've got 2 wings. I haven't found that wing in the middle yet. I was hoping the warp might be that one, but for me, it personally wasn't.
I think it answered everything Mitchell wanted.
The warp, it did.
Yeah.
Well, so the only thing I won't do on the warp, maybe very rarely, but on very light days, but I won't take the warp up in midday and go thermaling with it. And I really want to get a Dudek Universal 1.1 so I can go fly midday and not be scared for my life while I'm doing it.
Right.
Do you know what the secret to that is?
What's that?
Get a bigger warp.
Yeah, I thought about that, but then I'm like, what if I get... sometimes, during the summer here in El Paso, if any day during the summer you just look out on the horizon and you'll see like 3 or 4 dust devils just ripping across the ground. And it's like, man, what if I got on the edge of one of those or the top of one on a warp? Like, even though I'm on a larger size, I'm going to be along for the freaking ride.
Yeah, you're in the tumble dryer then, aren't you?
A lot of guys here, even very, very experienced free flight pilots, won't fly anything higher than a B glider just because the conditions here are so crazy.
There was a statement made quite a while ago that a lot of comp pilots, paraglider pilots, were saying that actually I can fly a C and a D, but I'll fly it to 50%. If you give me a B, I can fly it at 90%. I will get much more out of a B and turn it much tighter, take much bigger risks with a B than I ever would the C's and D's. And guys on Bs were winning comps because they were taking that, they had confidence
the extra
that the wing
risk
wasn't going to buck on them, and they just literally were flying it. They were flying for fun.
and it's more fun. It's more,
when am I going to get turned inside out?
yeah, it's more fun to fly a safer wing at your max potential than it is to fly a super advanced wing and just kind of be scared of it and not use it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why I try to convince Anthony to get a Nucleon XX.
Right.
You don't need a warp, mate. You don't need a spider. You need a Nucleon XX.
You need a Nuke XX.
Done.
And fly it to its max potential. Fly it as hard as you want to and have confidence in it, and learn to use the speed bar and the power attack and a huge trim range that you'll have, and your takeoffs and landings will be slower and you'll enjoy it more.
Yeah, and I think also cost is an incentive, being that dudecs generally are more affordable. With like your warp, you said what's the MSRP on the warp? Do you know?
They don't list it on their website.
Maybe like 38, 36.
The other way around in the UK, Dudek are really expensive and Ozone are really
really?
a little bit cheaper, yeah.
It seems opposite.
It's
here,
opposite
where
here.
The free ride was over like $4,200, I think.
Yeah, there's like $400 cheaper generally for a Dudek compared to an Ozone here in the States.
Right.
Can you send me one?
I trade you a Dudek for an Ozone.
See, you need to take one line out of this. Just delete 45 minutes worth and say, Anthony, you need to buy Dudek Nucleon XX. That's it.
There you go.
Job done.
Delete the rest of the
Terminated.
podcast. That's all you need to know.
Okay.
I've said this before, but just enjoy your progression phase. Don't rush to jump to the hottest, fastest wing.
I'm glad you said that. I'm really glad you said that too.
I look back on the days when I moved from my first wing to my intermediate wing, which was the ITV Billy 22 meter. And man, I just had so much fun learning wing overs on that wing. And it kept me safe. I never took any collapses on it. Right. I had confidence in it. I would fly it across the desert here, full trims out with my hands off, and just look around and take pictures. And it could still do wing overs, and I just enjoyed it so much. But if I would have jumped from my first wing to a Hadron, I probably would have crashed and broke props and like been scared the whole time, and wouldn't have flown near as much because I would have been scared of the conditions. So enjoy the progression phase and take your time and just enjoy it.
I'm sure that, something I'm neglecting to realize, it's almost like this: if I'm not on something real hot, then, and I think it's all your fault, because I'm watching you fly.
Yeah,
and
mate,
you're
it's
doing
all your fault, man.
things.
Sorry.
And you're doing this, and I'm like, well, I want to be able to do that. But I think you're absolutely right in the sense that,
give me a Nucleon XX, I will fly the exact same way. It can do everything. It just requires a little bit more RPM to maintain altitude at full speed, maybe.
Right.
Or maybe it's 5 miles an hour.
Your ITV Billy, I had my Nucleon WRC was exactly the same thing. That was my proper play wing. It's the one I was doing with full nose down spirals and was going, so I'm just having fun. I know this wing. It's like a barn door, but I can still throw it in the sky, and I can still point it in a straight line and just do my landings and takeoffs. I just didn't care. It just flew for fun. Right. And then I sold it. And then the moment I sold it with the Viper 3, I was like, I wish I hadn't sold that wing.
Yeah.
I was like, can I have it back, please? No, you can't have it back.
You never stress about the takeoffs or landings because it's just going to do what it's supposed to.
Right.
I would do a 360 and fly through my own wake and laugh. That was a little bump.
Something Giles probably wouldn't want to do. But for me, I like to fly in between power lines. You do?
I like to fly under them.
I noticed. Right. I saw that. I went, those things hurt.
Oh, flashbacks.
Those things really hurt.
I remember flashbacks.
Right. Don't say flash. I saw that as well.
You're making it worse.
It's funny.
Yeah, no, that's ultimately what I would like to be able to do with the next wing, is because it's like I can do it on the Spider. I'm just talking about like the vertical poles, whether it's a telephone pole or this or that, having a tree, something to go in between. On the Spider, it's like, it's just slow. And I after having rode motorcycles since I was a kid, it's like, I do like life in motion. I like that things moving faster. And it's not like I don't feel in any way, shape, or form that I am jeopardizing or putting myself at risk.
I get what you're saying. You're more at risk because you don't have the control that you want.
Right. I just want it to move a little bit faster, and which goes back to the point of I am sure that if I did have the Nucleon or I did have the Sirocco, I am sure that in my mind, prior to owning any new wing, more advanced wing, I'm just selfishly, in a way, saying, I want the free ride because that's what I see Tucker got fly, or that's what I see Giles flying, or I see Mitchell on the warp. When really, I bet if I walked to my front door and I had a Sirocco or a Nucleon sitting there and I was to strap into it, I would get up in the air and be like, wow, this is awesome.
So you know how you flew my warp the other day? You didn't land with a smile on your face.
No, I think I had piss all running down my leg.
Had that been a Nucleon XX, you would have been grinning ear to ear.
Right.
And you would have stayed up until you ran out of gas.
And no brown stain in the back of your trousers.
Yeah. I was like, I gotta go.
I want you to get a new wing so bad because every time we go fly together somewhere, I'm like trims all the way in, just looking around, waiting on you.
Doing circles.
Right.
Right.
It really tests my patience, and I don't have a lot of patience. I'm very impatient. Yeah. So I want you to get a faster wing so you can trim all the way out, and I can trim like halfway out, and then we can go the same speed.
Hell yeah. No, I think that'd be great. One of the other things, Giles, that I don't think the UK has nearly the amount of mountains is the United States.
We have little hills.
Little hills, little moleholes. And one of the things that I'd love to be able to do is I've got the Franklin Mountains just behind my house, maybe a mile away. And I would like to be able to go and soar along the tops of them. Last week, Mitchell and I went for a flight where we just hugged the mountain all the way to closer to downtown. Not going over downtown, just went that direction. And it was fun flying along the mountains. And that was a confidence builder because I've usually don't fly so close to the extreme change in landscape. But my ultimate upcoming goal would be to go up to the peaks, and you were flying on the 16-meter warp, and you made it up to the top, right?
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
It was a very calm day. It was like nil wind and late in the evening, so I wasn't worried about it.
Calm for you.
Oh, yeah.
Bump tolerance.
It's growing slowly but surely.
I think Mitch has touched on something as well, is that if you didn't come back with a smile on your face having flown the warp, means you're not enjoying it, which actually means you can go backwards with your confidence. So you need that middle ground to develop the confidence, not become cocky, but just know what you can do. And that's why they're called intermediate wings. Otherwise, we just go from a Spider to a free ride or a Hadron every time. You have to have that transitional wing, such as a Sirocco Nuke XX, to give you that, I've got more energy to play with now. I can go through those trees. I'm a bit faster on bar. I'm a bit faster with trimmers. Mitch isn't going to get annoyed with me because I can stay with him. That intermediate wing is where you need to be to get that fun again. Because otherwise you will end up going backwards, because every flight will be flipping heck. This thing's just going to kill me every time I land it.
Yeah, but hopefully by the time that Mitch gets back from his vacation,
there you go.
He'll have a flying buddy who can keep up with him.
Nice. So sure. I think you've got a wing on your shopping list then.
I do. I've got one or the other. I'm going to dig a little deeper into the Sirocco and the Nucleon. I think it's really insightful information, and I think what I gain from this conversation is you'll still be grinning from ear to ear on that, as opposed to taking that a step backwards because I'm just scaring myself. I appreciate that, both of your words of wisdom.
Yep.
And no more brown trousers.
No more brown trousers. It was getting gosh darn expensive.
And a lot less blown launches as well.
Right. I mean, to date, it's unfortunate. To date, I didn't fail. There was only one time I messed up a launch on the Spider out of a ton, and then. Of course, it's a reality check when you jump onto something like the warp in the snake, and you're like, "Oh, dang, there it goes."
Yeah, for the warp and the snake, I would say like 75% of your attempts were blown launches. So you don't want that to be your everyday life.
Good thing I can control what gets cut out on this.
Mitch, this is where we're along for the ride on this one, man.
Yeah.
Giles, do you have any words of wisdom? Mitchell himself actually could work towards his something that he doesn't like to admit, which is his fear of heights. I don't think Mitchell would ever be comfortable, at least not right now. If somebody said go up to 21,000 feet, you'd probably be scared shitless.
I wouldn't even do that in my helicopter.
So I've been higher in a 2-stroke engine than you have in your helicopter.
Yes, very true.
Yeah.
What was it for you, Giles? Just push through it, have faith in the wing.
Yeah, because there's no handbrake. You've just got to go with it. You've spent that long preparing for it. Why bottle out now? You just got to go right to the top, and then engine quits, and it's the longest hour 10 minutes glide back down again.
What's the highest you've been, Mitchell, that you know of approximately?
I went about 6,000 AGL when I was in Alabama.
There you go.
So which was 6,000 MSL as well.
Right.
I've been 6,000 MSL here as well, but that's only 2,000 AGL.
Imagine being more than three times higher.
And the highest I've been in a helicopter, I went to like 11,000 one time. So
that's crazy.
Giles has been twice as high as me in a paramotor than I have been in a helicopter.
I checked something today, actually. Do you know how short I was with the world record?
How short?
75 meters.
Oh my gosh! You should have just climbed a little. Oh, you ran out of fuel, didn't you?
Yeah, I was 7. But you've got to break it by 3%. So even if I had gone higher, I still had to get to 3%. So I think I had to get to 25.6 to set the new world record under the FAI rules. So yeah, I was 75 meters short. I was like, darn it. What did you say? Dang it? Dang it?
Dang it.
Gosh, dang it.
This was such a great episode. I'm so glad that Giles, you hopped on here. And we got to try and convince Anthony to go with the intermediate wing.
Yes.
Yeah.
You will be a lot happier. You'll be smiling from ear to ear. And every flight will just be, give me some more.
More progression, more learning. What you're doing now, but you'll just have a little bit more to play with.
Right.
Do you know what will eventually happen?
Huh.
You'll be teaching Mitch to do SATs.
That's right.
There you go.
Sorry, I had to get that one in, Mitch. Sorry.
Continued.
Let's save it for the next episode. No, you guys go out and do all the SATs you want and have fun. I spun a paraglider twice trying to do SATs and on a low B wing, and I do not want to attempt that on a highly loaded paramotor wing.
Right.
So you guys have your SATs fun. I'll just fly 50 miles an hour at 2 feet off the ground.
I'll do it my typical British conservative style then.
Touch and goes in the grass.
Well, shoot. Hey, thank you guys both so much for taking the time to be on the podcast today. I look forward to chatting it up with both of you next time.
Oh, perfect, man. Perfect.
Yep, me too.
All right. Thank you, Giles.
Take care, all. Good to speak to you both.
Yep, see you guys.
See ya.
Bye.